Please give another big round of applause. Now we're going to begin with the panel discussion. 네, 감사합니다. 먼저 두산디지털이노베이션의 로버트 오 Executive Vice President 부사장님께서 수고해 주실 겁니다. 그리고 IBM 시큐리티는 크리스 맥커디, 그리고 클래로티에는 야니브 바디, 그리고 마지막으로 사이버리즌에는 에릭 네이zel님께서 수고해 주시겠습니다. 자, 그럼 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. The floor is yours.
Good morning. It's great to be back here for my third year at ISEC. My name is Eric Nagel. I'm the president for APAC for Cybereason. I'll be your moderator for today for the next 30 minutes. So defend forward, defend together. 2023 has seen digital transformation trends move into hyperspeed. Security leaders have never had more on the line in terms of defending their corporate assets and reputation in geopolitics, business, and technology landscapes. With me today, we have Chris McCurdy, General Manager for Cyber Security Services at IBM, Robert O, EVP and COO for Dusanditalinobeation, and Yaniv Vardi, CEO of Claroty. So to kick it off, we've seen cybersecurity spend and revenue reach close to $4 billion this year, with a CAGR of close to 17% year-on-year growth. And this is due to the increased use of devices connected to the internet and an uptick in mobile device usage. The number of IP and geopolitics and national security making South Korea a formidable target for cyber attacks and cyber criminals. So first question to you, Robert. Doosan is one of the largest conglomerates in Korea and runs a diverse business-critical operations across industries and geographies. What are your views regarding the threat landscape in Korea, and especially on the organization's cyber resilience readiness to deal with such complex attacks?
Eric, thanks for raising the question. Can you hear me? Thanks for raising the question. Before I answer your question, though, I want to make sure I show my appreciation for three different groups. Number one is obviously the three of you. Eric, I know you flew in from Singapore last night to be a part of this panel. Chris, I know you came in all the way from Dallas. Flew, 15 hours to come to Korea last night. And then Yaniv, you flew in from Israel, right, last night. So first of all, I need to make sure that I thank the three of you for your commitment, your energy, and bringing your thought leadership to the table. Number two is, you guys all know, this is the 17th year of ISEC conference, and I want to thank the organizing committee for creating such a great venue and a great event for everybody to learn from each other. The third one is I want to thank my Doosan team members here. I think they're all sitting here cheering me on. Without your support and without your commitment for cybersecurity, I wouldn't be here talking about our cybersecurity posture, right? So with that recognition aside, I want to talk about going back to your questions. Before I talk about my cybersecurity view, I want to give you a viewpoint around our Doosan Corporation first. As you guys may know, Doosan is the oldest modern corporation in Korea with 127 years of history and continuing. We're into energy, we're into machinery, we're into semiconductor, material sciences, and consumer-related services. So we have about 30 different companies within the portfolio. And obviously, as you would imagine, in such a diverse portfolio, there's always going to be a viewpoint around cyber threats. Now, as you know, the cyber threat complexity is becoming more complex every single day. Before we talked about IT security, but nowadays this is not just about IT security. This is about OT security. This is about product security. This is about XIoT. This is about hybrid security. The threat landscape is becoming much more complex. How we defend has to evolve at the same time as well. So within Doosan, thanks to my boss who's sitting here in front of me, with his sponsorship, we were able to have a multi-generational, multi-year viewpoint around how we view cybersecurity. We don't look at cybersecurity as just one investment. We look at cybersecurity as a business imperative. We don't do any other actions unless we understand our cybersecurity postures, risks, and what we're going to do about it. So with that mindset within Doosan, we actually do a lot of different things to make sure that our cybersecurity core is resilient for many years to come.
So Chris, moving across to IBM and your views. So according to the Korean Internet Security Agency report, data leakage and ransomware were the most threatening cybersecurity concerns in 2022. What's IBM's view, and what are you doing to help cyber defenders address this concern?
You bet, and thank you for the question. And Robert, thank you very much for having us here. Your commitment and Doosan's commitment to security, it shows from the very top, and what you do every single day, from your organization to the products you build and make. But being secure by design, showing that thought leadership in this industry, and especially in Korea, is critical. So thank you, and thank you to the entire Doosan team. So attackers today are focused on extortion and disruption. It is a lucrative business model that creates leverage for attackers to gain money. It is instant payout for those attackers because organizations have to run their business. In 2022, we saw 25% of attacks using extortion, and that is through our X-Force Threat Intel Index report. Ransomware continues to be a major trend, and I don't see it going anywhere in the near future. Data breaches is also another lever that attackers are pulling. In South Korea last year, we saw the cost of a data breach for each security incident up to $3.5 million. So what do we need to do to look at these types of attacks? It is speed. Speed is critical in everything that we do in order to reduce cycle time from attackers. So time is money. And if you look at what the attackers are now able to do, we have to reduce our cycle time because of what they're able to do with payload in the environment. So at IBM, we're helping reduce the time that we respond to attacks and help proactive security. So let me explain 4 of those areas that we're helping our clients with. First, it is around knowing your attack surface. It is critical that you know the assets that you have, the vulnerabilities in those assets. Also looking at your industry and knowing the types of attacks that your industry is going through on an ongoing basis. Organizations on average, up to 1/3 of their environment is unknown, and it's critical that organizations understand their attack surface. Second is AI and automation. Leveraging AI and automation is critical for organizations today to reduce cycle time, to help speed up response time across these types of attacks that are happening in their environment. Third is open systems. Investing in technologies is critical, and we've all done that, but having technologies that have open systems that connect together to leverage AI and automation across all these technologies in support of reducing that cycle time. And finally, the last is preparedness. Are organizations prepared for these types of attacks? So it's not just a CISO or the security team that has to respond. It's an entire business. You have to be able to respond with your legal team, your communications team, your business and operations have to know to operate when a cyber attack happens. So IBM has built state-of-the-art cyber ranges around the world that help organizations respond to these types of attacks and actually rehearse and train for their very worst day. So for us, we're helping culture and embedding into that security strategy. It's just not about relying on AI and tools and technology, but it's the culture by which we need to help organizations so that you are doing proactive threat hunting on an ongoing basis. You're practicing response on a regular basis. You're developing your playbooks and rehearsing those not just once a year, but every single week so everybody can be ready.
So Yaniv, cyber attacks targeting South Korea have become increasingly more challenging to detect. Businesses in the private sector have been hardest hit, losing millions of dollars and seeing disruption to their systems. Now, the trend is moving beyond businesses into national defense and critical infrastructure. Given the trend of industry collaboration for enhancing cybersecurity, How does Claroty share its unique insights about OT and XIoT domains and threat patterns with a larger community to help cyber defenders stay ahead? And in particular, what can you share with us on the customer journey in the private sector and what they're going through there?
Sure. Thanks a lot for the question, Eric. And Robert, I want to say thank you to you and Dusan for the great partnership, for inviting me here, and for your thought leadership. I think the Lighthouse strategy is amazing, and I wish different countries, different organizations will adopt that and follow that. So thank you for your thought leadership, and thank you for having me here. Let me address the question. So first, maybe I'll share what Claroty does. We enable organizations in a critical infrastructure, industrial, manufacturing, healthcare, with full visibility, protection, and threat detection across their cyber-physical systems, the connected assets within the industrial control systems, OT, IoT in industrial manufacturing, IOMT, the medical devices in healthcare, and so on. Now, to your question, Eric, we are collaborating with the public sector, and it's a must to have the private sector and the public sector collaborating so we protect the industry and make sure we avoid the critical catastrophic event, if you will, that will come if we're not managing it properly. What we do, we have found hundreds of vulnerabilities in industrial control system. In the last 2 years, more than 400 vulnerabilities in industrial control systems. We shared that with the industrial control systems vendors like Siemens, like Schneider Electric, like Rockwell Automation. We made sure there's a disclosure schedule for the vulnerabilities. We work very closely with different government agencies like CISA, Homeland Security, and different governments across the board to make sure these vulnerabilities are disclosed to the public. Twice a year, we have what we call the biannual report on IoT/OT, where we actually disclose these vulnerabilities and share the IoT and OT trends. They are so important to understand so the organizations know where to focus on these critical vulnerabilities. To the second part of the question on the journey, look, it depends on the industry and the maturity of the organizations in the journey. Usually you see 6 steps there. Awareness, either it's coming from the, unfortunately, all these attacks that you hear about. 25% of the attacks today are on manufacturing, industrial. 25% of the attacks, mostly ransomware. And so awareness is there. The next stage, which is really the first stage, is getting visibility to what you have in your network. All these assets that are connected in the network. And visibility is the #1 challenge for most of these organizations. Understanding what you have in the network, understanding what's connected and how it's connected. And by the way, Gartner called it 40% of the assets are known for most of the organizations. 60% are unknown. And how can you protect what you don't see? So visibility is really the first stage to start with. And then you have the oh wow moment, which is the next stage, understanding your vulnerabilities, understanding your inherent risk, and what actions you need to take to mitigate that risk to the residual risk you can live with. And then you have firefighting, integration, because it's never an isolated island, always integrated to the existing security infrastructure, and later optimization. So these are the 6 steps that we usually see organizations going through. 90% of the organizations are between the visibility and the oh wow moment. So I encourage everyone to start with that and make sure you follow the journey.
So Robert, I'd love to get your thoughts on, the physical and digital worlds are converging, and a hybrid threat landscape is emerging where attacks in cyberspace will have implications in the physical world and vice versa. Now, obviously, this can come in the form of business disruptions, physical security and safety of infrastructure, theft and loss of confidential data, and ultimately, even loss of life. What's Dusan's ambition to help cyber defenders in Korea to enhance their cyber resilience capabilities, especially in collaboration with an open cybersecurity ecosystem.
So Eric, before I answer your question directly, let me give you a backdrop on the lighthouse strategy that Yaniv mentioned. I think this is the topic that I mentioned about last year as well. So in terms of the lighthouse strategy, this is all about Tucson consuming a set of technology within Tucson first. Prove it out, make sure that technology actually works. If the technology works, then we decide to take it to the external market by forming a partnership, which is what we did with Cybereason as well as Claroty. And we do that, and then when we start selling the solutions out in the market, we start hearing a lot of customer feedback, and then we bring those customer feedback back into the innovation cycle with our partners to make sure we can continue to innovate. Obviously, within that equation, IBM is a key partner in that as well, where we understand the strategic view of how other organizations are shoring up their cybersecurity posture. But before I talk about technology or cyber resilience, let me talk about one thing that Chris, you mentioned, which is all about employee change management and mindset around security. I think you can have AI, you can have security controls all day long, but without having the employees buying into why cybersecurity is important, it's not a good starting point. So Tucson is really rigorous about training our employees on why cybersecurity is important to the organization, to our customers, to our suppliers. From that buy-in, we get the top-down support as well, where organizationally we know cybersecurity is something that we have to look at as a important dimension of our business. So we start from there. Now, as you alluded to, there's going to be a lot of convergence between IT, OT, XIoT, and hybrid physical world, right? So now as a cybersecurity practitioner, your world is becoming much more complex every hour. But with that in mind, my view is you cannot do this alone. Doing this alone is not going to be a sensible way to go about it. You need to embrace an open ecosystem, which is what Tucson is doing. We're embedding some of the key solution providers into our thought leadership. We bake that into our Tucson deployment first. We use it within Tucson first, learn about it, and quickly disseminate this out into the market. We want to continue to do that and be able to benefit both the public and private sector in Korea. So as a whole country, we're better off. So Eric, Cybereason is a respected EDR solutions provider. I know we've been partners for a few years now. I respect your solution. I respect a lot of the approaches you have. How does Cybereason embrace an open ecosystem for innovation? And how do you help other companies to defend forward?
So thanks, Robert. So maybe I'll answer it two ways. Firstly, from a technology perspective, Cybereason has always been an open architecture, open ecosystem, choosing to partner with other vendors and technology providers because we recognize this is not a problem we can solve ourselves in silo. So we partner very well with Claroty and bridge the IT and OT together to provide kind of a one pane of glass in terms of visibility, detection, response to many customers. So that's kind of from a technology perspective. But from a thought leadership, we've been pioneering our Cybereason Defend Forward program, which comes from the US Department of Defense, and that's to defend with an offensive mindset. And really, it's the main aim is to make it expensive for attackers, to make it dangerous, and also to make it worthless. So along those themes, we've created our Cybereason Defender Council. So today we have in the Asia-Pacific region 30 CIOs and CISOs as part of our thought leadership group that meets on a quarterly basis. And I know you've been participating in that effort. Our Cyber Defender Tech Alliance, so working with vendors like Claroty, really on integration, visibility, how we can defend a customer better. Thirdly, this year we pioneered our DefenderCon over 4 cities, and we'll be bringing that to Korea next year. And again, that is thought leadership into a particular country. And lastly, and perhaps one of the most important, is our Cybereason Defender Academy. So working with Dusan University, we now have our technology inside, we have our technical training inside. So as young students coming out of university, they already have skill sets that are applicable in the real world. So as we get close towards the end of our panel, I really want to look forward and really ask each of you, what cybersecurity trends and practices do you see continuing into next year and beyond? And what are your predictions on how cybersecurity will continue to evolve? So maybe, Robert, you can take the first stab at this one.
I know Eric and Chris and Yaniv, you guys will provide a lot of thought leadership from an industry perspective. Let me share my thoughts from a practitioner standpoint first. So from a cybersecurity trends perspective, I think there are many things that I foresee continuing. I think Chris already mentioned earlier, which is about ransomware and phishing-related attacks continuing to amplify. This is not going to stop. This is going to continue to amplify. And there will be some companies that will fall to those phishing attacks and ransomware attacks. So the continuation of those simplified, basic attacks will continue by different groups of hackers, number one. Number two, I think this is the reason why we're working with all these great partners is I see a great convergence between IT security and OT security. I think we talked about the IOMT, which is the first time I heard about the medical technology being connected. But as an example, continuing change of landscape is going to allow us to converge some of this technology landscape. Again, IT, OT converging. This is an important trend for Korea because Korea is one of the most developed countries in the world with connected manufacturing. I say US, Germany, Japan, and Korea have the most smart manufacturing, most connected manufacturing. Therefore, OT security is very, very important frontier for all of us to consider. And from a use of AI, I know we talked about good or bad AI, but use of AI in general, marrying this up with security, cybersecurity is going to continue so that the cybersecurity practitioners have to focus on what they have to focus on, leveraging AI as a filter. Secure by design, all the connected products that we make into the market, I think there's going to be a lot more emphasis around how do you secure from design inception on all the way out to release to manufacturing. One last thing I want to mention is cybersecurity is not a choice. It is a strategic imperative for every organization. As we talked about before, organizations should not wait. We should act now to look at your cybersecurity program to make sure it's ready for next generation and account for some of these mega trends that are coming down the pipeline.
Thank you, Robert. Chris, your views on trends and practices and predictions.
You bet. And with your use of time, I'm going to keep with my theme of time and speed. But the pace of attacks is continuing to accelerate. We see attacks happening with ransomware where an adversary or an attacker is launching their payload in under 4 days in many of the attacks that we've seen and had to remediate. But I can tell you, organizations that have a mature AI program in place have reduced their time by 108 days, shorter than the breach lifecycle. So that reduces significantly the amount of time, keeping with my theme, in those types of attacks. Now, we've talked a lot about Gen AI, and many of the speakers have spoken about it, but Gen AI is in its infancy. We've just seen the onset of ChatGPT this year and what can be done, but the acceleration of generative AI is moving quickly as well. But we need to stick with the foundations of the AI models that we've built, so that way our organizations, the people that are fighting the bad guys every day, can continue to build the repositories that will fill these language models into the future. Now, I will say this. The adversary and the attackers are also leveraging generative AI. Some of the attacks that we continue to see now, look at some of the voice technologies that attackers are now using and leveraging that for potentially business email compromise or ransomware as well. So that is picking up in pace as well. So we need to make sure that we're leveraging AI, taking advantage of the efficacy, the proactiveness that we can build. But also, as we build these large language models, it's important that it's good AI as we build this, because these systems will be trained and learn from what we do as analysts. So it is not just a one-time training, it is an ongoing training. As new threats happen, there's always going to be a zero-day threat. We have to make sure that we train these systems so that when we see it the second and third time, we're taking the right response. So I see generative AI coming out of its infancy in the next 1 or 2 years, but reducing that cycle time so that way we can keep up with the adversary.
Thank you. Yaniv, your thoughts, predictions into the future.
Sure. So first, increased connectivity. I mean, it's very, very clear that digital transformation is really pushing companies to increase connectivity, to optimize and automate their traditional processes, to get more real-time analytics. There are so many benefits with increased connectivity. Obviously, it's by far outpacing the ability to secure it. And so increasing connectivity is getting not just unmanaged devices connected in your network, but also legacy devices connected. Think about a PLC or an HMI 10, 20 years ago was not designed with security in mind because there was no need to. Now it's all connected. And so the ability to secure it is key here because we're expanding the attack surface. The other trend that we see is the convergence between OT and IT. To Robert's point before, you see now one network that has all of it together with the cloud coming in, and we have to make sure, as I said before, we start with visibility, understand your assets, understand your vulnerabilities and the risk before you move forward. And on the prediction side of things, if you think about that, we really need to make sure the public and the private sector collaborate and really avoid a catastrophic event in the near future. And you'll see more regulations that are coming per industry, not just global guidelines, but per industry. And I think companies should really look at their zero trust framework and what they need to do to make sure that human to machine is being secured and machine to machine is being secured. Starting with visibility, vulnerability and risk management, threat detection, securing the remote access, the whole thing, and not just a point solution.
So we're almost coming to the end of our time, but you know, one of the things that always I ask myself and keeps me is, you know, what keeps me up at night? Because I know the bad guys are out there. The bad guys never sleep. It's an incredibly profitable business for the bad guys. But maybe starting with you, Chris, like what keeps you up at night?
You bet. So for me, I'm going to say people in one word, whether it's the adversary and the attacker that I have to worry about to protect our clients, or it's the very people in our organizations that sometimes create the attacks in our own environment. So I worry about both sides because the adversary is always creating, coming up with new ways to attack, but they're attacking people. And whether it's social attacks or doing something on a machine where someone clicks on an attack, as we see phishing at 41% of these attacks, if we could just get rid of email alone, we'd reduce by 41%. That won't happen. So I'm going to go with people to keep me up at night.
Robert, what keeps you up at night?
Eric, I'm an optimistic guy, and I sleep really well at night. I don't stay up at night, but I think the reason why I may stay up at night would be the possibility of what can we do next, right? So last year I came here to talk about our partnership between IBM and Cybereason, and I told in the video that I would continue to expand it. Now we have Claroty, right? So my view is how do we continue to add additional partners and capabilities into our ecosystem to make our core better? So that keeps me up at night, but in an exciting way.
Yaniv,
Yep.
What keeps you up at night?
Sure. So to my previous point, I think the increased connectivity is really a reason to worry. Think about 30 billion devices connected in the next 3 years. 30 billion unmanaged devices that you have no idea you have in your network. That's huge. That's something to really focus on.
Okay, so with that, I'd like to wrap up the session today. Thank our guest speakers, Chris, Robert, Yaniv, for participating today. Also thank the organizers for having us here today. We have our booth just outside, so we'd be more than happy to talk to anybody in the audience. If you want to learn more about how Claroty, Cybereason, Doosan, and IBM are bringing cyber resilience to the Korean market, please stop by. We'd love to chat. And with that, thank you very much.